So on the 22nd of September, BlackRock came out with something remarkable.
Statement.
They made out a statement, and it's sort of like you say to the butcher, yeah, you should not eat meat anymore. Or to the bakery, don't eat bread anymore.
Something like that.
Because it's unhealthy.
BlackRock is the biggest asset manager in the world.
Yes.
And what they do, they provide a lot of their products to institutions, but also to retail investors. And they are market leader, I think, in creating ETFs. So
Yes.
what they say, okay, you have to invest and you have to do it through us. And our products are baskets of shares, ETFs or funds.
Mm-hmm.
And in their statement of what Martin said, 22nd of September, they said, now at this moment you have to look at the stock market by a stock-by-stock approach.
Yeah.
And that's indeed remarkable, because they say always you have to buy this basket, to buy this basket, or you can buy basket, but now they say you have to look at it from a stock-by-stock approach.
Yeah, that's remarkable.
And we're going to explain why, and we have an example of a stock, and that in that analyze that we do, we follow the approach of BlackRock. But first, really short, this market, this week, stock market,
Yes.
storm.
Yeah, it's all about currency. If we don't dive
No, short.
Currencies is what's keeping us busy, except from the war in the Ukraine and all those sorts of things. But what I saw remarkable from the Bank of Japan, I'm saying Bank of China, the Popular Bank of China. The Popular Bank of China.
Okay.
But maybe Popular, because I have it from the Spanish number, it means People Bank.
Yeah.
People Bank of China. They announced this morning to all the state banks to prepare all their dollars, because they are planning to sell the dollars and buy with those dollars yuan, because the yuan, obviously, same as the euro, same as the Swiss franc, all the currencies the pound are suffering a lot against the really strong dollar. Funny thing is that the Chinese has one of the largest reserves in the world in US dollars, almost 3 trillion. So that's an enormous amount of dollars. So if they start selling that and to back up their own currency, you might see some movements in the currency market.
But you see already the euro is getting stronger against the dollar. It's now at 98 something. It's now Friday at the beginning of the afternoon, so I don't know exactly. No. So maybe because of those announcements, the euro...
You see the movements already.
Yeah, the euro is not getting stronger, but the dollar is getting weaker.
Could be easily. Microsoft. From a fundamental perspective, because we first look fundamental and then technical.
Yes. Shall I do the fundamental part?
Yes.
It's now trade. No, yeah, you already said. You already mentioned the stock. First,
Microsoft.
First I want to explain. BlackRock said, okay, you have to, what I just said, stock-by-stock approach. And they also said, because you can diversify stocks in different baskets. You can say, okay, you can do it by region or by the amount of the value of the company. But you can also do, and that's nowadays more popular than in the past, value stocks against tech stocks.
Yes.
And in between you have all kind of other types of stocks. And they came to the conclusion, and that's based on a part of more than one indicator. One of them was, for example, how do they recover from periods of high inflation? But they came to the conclusion that almost from the US stocks, almost all the value stocks are undervalued, and 1/4 of the tech stocks, and they are really undervalued. And that's what I meant by a stock-by-stock approach. You can buy almost all the value stocks, but for the tech stocks, there are such interesting tech stocks in it, but not all of them, so you have to do your homework. And they said, but if you, in the summary, they said, okay, you can buy those two sectors and not the ones in between, so the value stocks and the tech sector. And it's always one or the other, so it's quite remarkable. And also remarkable, they don't have an ETF or a fund where they put not yet those two together. So what we wanted to try to do, okay, don't look at some value stocks, but look at some tech stocks and help you by which kind of steps, what kind of procedure that you can follow to come to the conclusion if that tech stock is interesting or not.
Yes.
And then we came on Microsoft.
Yeah.
Because we spoke a lot about, for example, Tesla, Netflix and Apple, and we only mentioned it a couple of times, Microsoft, but now we said, okay, it's a good moment to talk about Microsoft. It's trading, it's now before the opening on Friday, $237. And at the beginning of the year, Martin, it was?
At 340 something.
Yeah. So it's all the tech stocks down a lot. It's less down than Netflix, for example, but it's down. So it also can give opportunities. And you're going to talk about the technical opportunities. 237. If you look at the fundamentals, for example, at the assets, they have assets around 365 billion. And assets, you never can say, never can only look at assets. You also have to look at the debt, and they have only 78 billion of debt. So I think Warren will like those figures.
Yes.
And if you look at the estimations of next year, so 365 billion dollars in assets will grow next year to around 409. So that will grow. Do they also on the other side of the balance then have more debt? No, the market expect that it will drop from 78 to 49. So that is really
good stuff.
That's good. That's good. Fundamental investors like those things. If you look at the earnings per share, it's also really important. Then you see that it's estimated, we are almost there at the end of the year, a little bit less than $10, $9.65. So if you say around 10, if you round it up, and 237 is Microsoft trading, then it's around 1 to 4 times
the profit.
Yeah, and that's
earnings.
Yeah, that's okay.
Of course, they need to take interest to part, but it's okay.
Yeah, and I think, if you look one step back, it is like Google, it's market leader. The market leader, they hardly don't have any competitors. So it's a really important driver in that area. $9.65 for this year, expected $10.13 for next year, 2023, and 2024, almost $12. And that's what BlackRock likes. Especially look at the growth figures, expected growth figure. A growth figure is always expected, but look at it. And then I think, and you can of course go a layer deeper, why is the growth, where is it coming from? But I think then you have good fundamentals that you can say, okay, I believe in the growth, I believe in that company for the future.
Totally agree with you. Yeah, and to emphasize what you just said about the different sort of tech stocks, I look technical. I'm going to first talk with you technically about Microsoft. I took my drawing box and I made a lot of lines and charts in this for indicators. I put into the chart of Microsoft. And what do I see basically? If I look at the Fibonacci retracement, I draw the Fibonacci from the highest level in December last year to the March 2020 COVID dip. So that's almost 140 points difference, so from 200 to 340 something. And what you see is that the 50% retracement level within those 140 points was more or less at 275. At this moment, we are trading at the 76.4. So 76.4 out of the 140 points between March 2020 and December 2021. So we had a really big drop from the highest levels. That's for sure. What does that tell you? That doesn't tell you so much. It's just an indication that where we are, it's a support, it's a resistance level, and it's playing with that level. The next important level, if you ask me, just looking at this chart, and also from the past, is going to be the 270, 275 level. That could be like our first target. If you look about what Wall Street is saying, that's more fundamental. Of course, they predict 322, right? 325
over a year.
Over in a year's time. So, but the first big hurdle that needs to be taken is the 50% retracement from the highest point compared to March 2020, which is 271. If you then look at the short-term and the longer-term moving averages, so what is to take out the choppiness out of the line, you see that they're both, well, the longer term is still going down, but the shorter term is showing some signs of weakening. So the bump is there, and that's actually confirmed by the moving average convergence divergence, the MACD, which is giving you an indication if the trend is turning, so the divergence of the line. And you see there that we're slightly getting into positive territory already. So there's little bars underneath, so you got a zero line, and if it's below, it's negative, and if that's turning green, then it might indicate, and it's a signal to keep an eye on the chart, which is at the top of the image. So you will see, it is quite positive. If you compare this then to another tech stock, and that's actually what Kaspar was also saying, do your homework. Yeah, you can see with Meta, it's completely different. It's a big mess. I draw the same Fibonacci from Christmas to March 2020. So we have there from 150 to also 380. Well, so that is almost, what is it? $230 that the price went up from the lowest point, but we have lost from that point almost $260 now. So we completely went through the 100% retracement in the Fibonacci. So basically we are going back to levels of December 2018. If you look at the MACD, also nothing that gives me a signal that we are getting into positive territory. Both of the moving averages are going down. So you see there's a big difference from a technical perspective between Microsoft and Facebook in this case. So very important to do your homework. We might see some positive news in Microsoft, of course, depending on very much the macroeconomical circumstances, what is happening in the world. But from a technical perspective, Microsoft seems to be flattening out.
Yeah, and I think the world, what's happening in the world.
Yeah, of course.
And Microsoft is helping Ukraine. They said that they were the second country in the world with the most attacks, cyber attacks, just before when the war started. And they helped them a lot with cloud services. I want to close down with some fun facts about Microsoft. And the first one is, and that's not about Microsoft so good, but it's more for Bill Gates. He was the youngest person ever became a billionaire in the United States. He was 31 and it was in the year 87. Really good for him. And what is also quite interesting, how about patents? How many do they have? They have at the moment on the shelf 48,313 patents.
Wow.
So they control. I just said so halfway things about the market leadership they have and how strong are you against the future if you have 48,000 patents. Yeah. I think you're quite strong.
You're very strong.
The first watch, we spoke 3 weeks ago about the new Apple watches. And they were the first who had a smartwatch, and it was in 1994. It wasn't really successful, and there's another fun fact with Apple. Again, the first time that Steve Jobs was on the stage as a CEO, he announced that we were almost bankrupt, but we were saved by Bill Gates because he invested $150 million in our company. He saved us, and then all the audience were boo, boo, boo. But that was, and they had a close relationship in the beginning of the computer, the home computer, because they were developing software together. And then Bill Gates, that's what Steve said, he stole it and he went his own way. But then they came together when in 1997 was it when they did a capital investment of $150 million. Wow. The last part is, when you work with Microsoft and it's your birthday, then you have to bring something to your colleagues, and that are M&Ms. And the amount of M&Ms that you have to bring on the day of your birthday is the years that you are working with Microsoft in pounds. So Bill Gates has a lot of M&Ms to bring yes, when it's his birthday.
Definitely.
So I think we were triggered by an announcement on the 22nd of September by BlackRock. So you should have a stock-by-stock approach. And that's especially a strong message from the biggest ETF builder in the world. So we tried to follow that method and gave you some inside information about Microsoft from a fundamental and a technical perspective. So I hope it helps you a little bit in these difficult times in the world and on the stock market.
Definitely.
And give us a thumb. Thank you very much.